It can be extremely tricky trying to make your living magically as a magical professional. There are so many different things that you have to balance. First and foremost, your business needs, your financial needs. Are you able to meet your rent obligations for your home, for your office if you work in one? Are you able to purchase materials that you're able to convert, bespell, enchant, and send off to people? Are you able to manifest the money for your advertising budget? Are you able to enchant your advertising methods? Are you able to do whatever it is you need to do in order to explain to people that magic is very real and bring them to the understanding that magic runs so thick through this world that not engaging with it is the act of a fool? And it is a, again, very delicate balancing act, trying to meet all of your needs as well as the needs of the spirits and forces you work with. And then, of course, have to deal with the spirits, forces, and the people who work with them that are working counter to your intentions, because there's always someone who is either working against you or whose goals are in conflict with yours, whether you know of each other or not. And to be perfectly honest, I've been in the game for a while now. And what I can say is right now, business is booming. More and more people are needing services for protection, for love, for money, for manifesting the goals that they want, for seeking clarity on the things that they need. And that need is only getting bigger and bigger, and the reason why is because the world is in such chaos right now. And it's that type of chaos where your average normal person, there are air quotes around that word, might look at the world and think, what in the hell is happening right now, and be overcome with panic. But the practitioner, the magician, the witch, the sorcerer, sees the chaos and sees all the levers that can be pushed or pulled or manipulated, and learns to make their living in that chaos. And I have a fantastic guest today, Mr. Adam Conjure. Adam is a multidisciplinary practitioner and truly a very fascinating person to speak with and to look and watch the progress of the growth of his business, devilsconjure.com. And I have used several of Adam's products. And like everyone I have on the show that I communicate with, I can attest heartily to his skill and power as a practitioner. This was a fun, wide-ranging conversation going over a number of different things, as is the style of this show. And I did need to do some heavy editing. There seemed to be some interference on one of our ends that didn't actually stop until I changed the bandwidth needs and then started to have to invoke Mercury through one of his pentacles to help communication. True story, and one of those fun things about being a practitioner. This was a fun one, Adam's journey in going from more or less a normal life into being a professional practitioner and providing top-notch services to people is a great one to watch, to hear about, and to learn from. So sit back, grab a snack, and enjoy. And there we go. Adam Conjure, how the hell are you?
Doing great, man. Just taking it easy on this
Awesome.
beautiful Sunday.
Yeah, I'm seeing these weird weather flips go on and on and on, and I'm remembering the big push throughout the winter for folks trying to conjure up some weather changes to make things difficult for folk, and I'm just kind of like, you know what? I think we may have pushed a little too hard on that, but hey, it is what it is.
Right.
It's, yeah, it's a gorgeous day. Now, Adam, I want people to
Yeah.
know. Oop. I want people to know who you are and what you do. So can you give us a breakdown of what it is to be Adam Conjure? Complicated question. I know. I love starting that way.
Sure. Yeah. And so just a quick intro for me. I grew up in the tri-state area, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama. I grew up outside of Raymer, Tennessee, in like the foothills of the Appalachians. Lots of superstition, grew up
Mm.
Southern Baptist, at least on one side. And so I was caught between, experiencing literal miracles and stuff, even as a child, but also being kind of crushed underneath the religion of my
Mm.
origin, basically, that I grew up in. And so, I experienced many really, as I said, miraculous, magical things, even spirits of the dead, all kinds of stuff when I was younger, but I never really had any context for it. It wasn't until I was in my teens that I really started to kind of make sense of things. But yeah, I've certainly delved into a number and work within many traditions. But as far as me as a person, I'm a root worker professionally.
Mhm.
I work for clients all over the world through our business Devil's Conjure. We offer many services. But what I'm really about is helping people walk in their power. I feel like in our modern day, people have made it so hard for magic to work. Like they've put so much on it, so much
Mhm.
weight, and really magic is easy. It's what we're meant to be doing. It's what we're here for. It's part of how things work. It's its own force and its own spirit. And I feel like even though there's sort of that concept that everyone is that people might be chosen or you're called to the work or you're initiated or whatever, we're all have the ability to do magic and to do great things
Mhm.
and to free and liberate ourselves, outside of, to basically break the shackles of like the social construct and like all these
Mhm.
things that are put on us growing up in the society in America, and really use magic to free ourselves, get ahead in life, succeed, get laid, get paid, whatever we desire. And
Yeah.
I'm all about like getting the tools to people, no matter the tradition that I might be teaching in or from, whether it's conjure, astrological magic, ceremonial or goetic magic, and other paths. I'm all about basically getting the right information to the right people, helping people make sense of it, and basically put it into action to really do something with it. And so that's kind of like my whole mission. And with Devil's Conjure, our mission is to basically bring the power to the people. And whether that's through our products, through our services, I even take on clients and mentor, as well as offering my retainer service, which is kind of like an all access pass to
Mhm.
divination, ritual magic, mentoring one on one with me. So, but yeah, I'm all about empowering people.
One of the things that I find really amazing about what you just said was how easy magic is. And I think that you're right, especially the social construct concept that you were talking about. We've had decades of scary movies that tell you if you touch a Ouija board, your life explodes. Which, I mean, can you imagine how many people at Hasbro whose lives would just fall to pieces if that were true? But it ultimately is nothing really more difficult, I think, to enchant your life other than, let's say, just pull a random card, see what it says. You can light a candle, say a prayer, and make miracles happen. What's it like growing up in an innately magical environment like the edge of the Appalachians, where it's ingrained into the culture, knowing that, you have rules of engagement for the things and the beings around you?
It's honestly kind of awesome. It's in some ways not exactly, but it's the same kind of energy I would imagine in a large city. We
Mhm.
live in a decent sized city, but we're like in the mountains here in the Ozarks, and it's alive. It's like no matter where you are, you can feel the spirit humming, and
Mhm.
you can feel things going on. And so even though I live in the middle of a city, we're still like on a mountain, basically surrounded by forests and stuff everywhere. And so I can literally go like a few minutes in any direction, and I'm on, I can be hiking, or I'm at a lake or whatever. But yeah, it's honestly awesome. Even the land that we live on, like the house that we live on, that situation here is very alive, and sort of the kings and rulers of the land and stuff. I do a lot of
Mhm.
work with them, especially justice work with some of the shady shit that we have like developers trying to do and stuff here.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's very alive. I in some ways wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and it's palpable. It's in the air, even though a lot is done, to try to kind of tear down the forests and build up new churches and stuff. It's almost like it's just part of the place itself. So yeah, it's there's a lot going on. There's a lot of energy. there's a lot of history and energy here, like just the city of itself too. Um, the city of Springfield, there's actually a street called Division that runs through the city. And hundreds of years ago, there was a tribe that was on the north side of town and one on the south side, and they actually used to fight and battle. And so they're like really old spirits at play here as well. So
Mhm.
that adds like another interesting facet to things. So
Yeah, it's such a thing. And I hate saying things in like a North versus South thing, but that is such a like a Southern and Midwest thing too, that I think a lot of having lived all over the US, a lot of places in the North don't really get that feeling of the world being so powerfully alive and conscious around you. I think New Orleans is a fantastic example because everywhere you go, you feel the
mhm.
city watching you and its residents kind of being very curious about what in the hell you're up
Yeah.
to and why you didn't leave that candle burning politely in your window at night. So, my personal experience with what
Mhm.
you provide over at Devil's Conjure started with, well, just watching your Instagram feed, of course,
Yeah.
which is exceptional, but also was the Black Pullet talisman. And I got to tell you, I think I told you this in a DM, but my spirit side is kind
Yeah.
of mid at best. But the Black Pullet was one of the most powerfully, visibly manifested beings the first time that I worked with her right there, and on the table that I had it on. What is what's your process that you want to have people understand for when they work with you when you make these things so that people can have a good understanding of the services you provide?
Mhm. Yeah. So as far as our services, our products, things like that, it really differs between the tradition that I'm working in. As far
Mhm.
as our products, we offer something ranging from conjure to ceremonial astrological magic to traditional witchcraft and the occult, and then our services run the gambit as well. But yeah, I'm very result oriented. No matter what I create, like I want it to not only work, but to yield results, and then offer other things as well. But yeah, everything that we offer as far as products, it's all ritually consecrated. It's basically ready to go. We have clients that have experiences with, for example, our ritual oils long before they ever put them to work. Like I have
Mhm.
clients who will say that they have our red devil oil in their possession, and they're like they're hitting big on the lottery, they're winning
Mhm.
at the casino, they've got money rolling in, and one lady she'll tell me all the time, she's like, I haven't even cracked this bottle open, but I just keep it on me, and it's like a genie in a bottle. As far as our services, it's basically the same kind of sort of intent and spirit behind that. I'm I have a lot of clients from all over the world, people whose budget ranges, from a little bit of money to a whole lot, and people who need, either basically like a candle working all the way up to working with me for a year with the retainer service,
Mhm.
basically helping overhaul their life and on every level. So yeah, I'm all about helping people, walk in their power, get the results that they want, achieve the success. I feel a lot of pride when my clients reach out and the spell hit, it worked, they got the job, or the long lost love returned, or their visa was approved and they're not going to be deported from the country. And so
Nice.
I'm all about I come from the aspect or the perspective, like basically the tools and the wisdom and everything that I was taught by my mentors and that I've used in my own life, I now share with my clients, and I try to basically enchant the world a ritual at a time to bring the same mojo to help other people in need. So,
Awesome. See, that's really what I love to see, and I think that this might be a bit of a charged statement, but I think that that really is kind of the difference between a casual practitioner and the folks who go from doing magic into being magic. Is, it becomes so integral to your life that it's what you do from when you wake up to when you go to sleep, and then you
mhm.
have dreams as well that you're doing all the kooky stuff
Yeah.
in at a certain point.
Mhm.
Um, and it really does just make life
Mhm.
better,
Mhm.
frankly,
Yeah.
letting go of all that traumatic crap that magic requires you to let go of. Now, when you started Devil's Conjure, was there,
Mhm.
were you motivated to do that by, was there a spirit that was telling you to go into this? Was this something that emerged from yourself? How did that come to be?
Mhm.
What's the superhero origin story of Devil's Conjure, basically?
Yeah. So Devil's Conjure started 2019, like the near the end of 2019, pre-COVID.
Hmm.
To be honest, at that point, I'd worked crazy jobs. I'd been in the military. We had, at one point where we even had like lost it all, lost everything. We were homeless and basically built our way from nothing. And that's kind of where Devil's Conjure came. I was working dead end jobs, and this is after we had, had basically built our way up from losing everything, and I had just quit like this shitty job working at like a pizza place,
Mm.
and my husband Darian was just like, and I at the time I'd actually been working on taking steps to like align things to begin Devil's Conjure. I just didn't know what that looked
Mm.
like. I didn't even have the name at the time. And so it was kind of like a lot was up in the air, and he was just like, "Why don't you just do this, and start get this going? This feels like it could, really take off." And so I basically like, worked with the Crossroads Devil, worked with my beneficial the ancestors with Cyprian, and basically like asked them like, "Hey, I need something big to happen. This is kind of like the, one shot in a million, and I need kind of like all hands on deck." And it's like within days I was fully inspired by the spirits I work with to create like a whole line of oils. I was working with the devil and with Cyprian, and they basically were like, "How about Devil's Conjure?" And even my husband was like, "That's going to turn people away. That's going to scare people." But something about it felt right. And so it was just like once I initiated things and kind of turned the key and got the ball rolling, it's like we have only taken off and grown from there. But yeah, it basically started on like my bedroom floor out of a tiny closet, where I had an altar space and was, I'd fill orders and do things on the floor, and we've built where we are from now. But yeah, we we certainly could not have done that, and people who've supported us and who continue to. So it definitely takes a village.
Yeah, and it's been amazing. I was without sounding weird or creepy, I was definitely like stalking your Instagram and your Facebook posts a little bit to get a little more information, trying to find the right things to ask, of course. And it is
Yeah.
a perfect example of how people can blow their life up the right way, going from those positions of,
Yeah.
desperation, working at a pizza place, being unemployed or self-employed in my case, and trying like hell. And every moment you're, having to dance just a little bit harder in order to get things going the way you want it to. But it's such a perfect symbol, I
Yep.
think, of what a person can do and those miracles that people can work. And of course, the purpose of doing what you're supposed to be doing, if you believe in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
That's a big one, I think, too.
purpose. Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
let's.
like it's like you could be doing anything and making money, but I think if you kind of like figure out what comes naturally to you and you kind of lean
Mhm.
into that, and that's what worked. For me, I've always been a trickster. Even when I was a child, my initials were BAM when I was younger, before I've changed names and stuff. And my nickname was even Bam Bam, like the kid from Flintstones. And as a kid, I was kind of wild and grew up in the woods and ran
Mhm.
barefoot on gravel roads and played with snakes, and so I've always kind of caused a little hell. So it's like at some point it was just kind of like, why not be the devil you were always meant to be and play that role and walk in that power? Somebody has to.
I mean, there you go. Yeah, and it has been my experience, and I don't speak for any god or spirit, but it's been my experience, of course, that they tend to, let you find what your strength is and then fully expect you to utilize that. Like, we didn't just give you this for no
Oh
reason at all. You got
yeah.
to do something with
Yep.
it. And that's such an important lesson, I think, in these
Exactly.
days. Yeah, there's so much trying to tell us to be smaller, be weaker, and not embrace the power that actually exists. And what would be your professional recommendation for somebody who
Yep.
is just looking to break into magic and the occult and trying to, blow their life up the right way? What would be the first thing that you would tell somebody?
For somebody who is like trying to walk in their power or figure out what they're supposed to be doing, is that what you mean essentially?
E- exactly, yeah. Somebody who's trying to find the magic in their own lives.
One thing with my retainer service, this is one thing I teach people a lot. And like even when I teach at conferences or clients one-on-one, I always recommend people get real clear about what they want.
Mm,
Some people will come to magic and they really just wanted to land that one job. They have no intention of ever working magic again. And they wanted to they want money. And so it's like some people are better off if you don't want to be like a lifetime practitioner, just to work with, basically hire someone like me who's professional, who's got a great rep, and who can help you, every step of the way. And then there's some people that, for whatever reason, whether it's ancestral, whether it's like a calling, or whatever, some people are really gifted to work, as a sorcerer on behalf of other people or whatever. And so I think it's important to get really clear about, whether it's something that you're wanting to invest, like, your whole life and your energy and your time into like basically mastering magic, or if you're
mhm,
just trying to like, have some hookups with some great lovers, or if you're really just, wanting to get your business off the ground. Because I have found that there's so many people that will spend years and years and years, and they'll realize that all that time they really just had a few things that they could have went to a professional for, had handled, and then gone on with their life. And then there's some people that they didn't invest enough, and they come to it much later and realize, hey, this is what I was supposed to be doing all along. So I definitely recommend people, sit down, do a pros and cons kind of list. Think about, what am I trying to do with magic? Do I want to master magic? Do I want to be like a damn good like diviner, like with reading cards? And really figure that out. And I feel like that eliminates a lot of factors that will kind of get in your way or throw a wrench in things, because you're realizing, do I actually want to become a professional, or am I just trying to like, get laid or whatever? And so
mhm,
I find that kind of clears a lot of the cobwebs out, and makes a lot more sense for people, because once you figure out what you want to do with magic or what it's all for, you're able to approach it from, sort of a better angle, especially
mhm,
according to what certain magical tradition or system or path that you might choose to walk down.
mhm. Absolutely. And it's funny because you really kind of put my beginning years longer ago than my aging self wants to acknowledge, but it was the paralysis by analysis. Like when you realize that magic works no
Mm,
matter if you put the effort in, no matter what you want, you can work towards something. The whole world opens up and you kind of dither for a little bit of a
yeah.
while in the sparkle phase. You're like, what the hell do I want to do with all of this? And
Mm,
that self-analysis is such a crucial
yeah.
thing. And it has been my experience, both as a therapist and as a magician, that
Mm,
magic leads to a form of self-analysis. Like you learn
it
so much
does.
about yourself and your place. And if you aren't ready for that, you're probably not ready to play in the bigger leagues. So, in that spirit, what is it you feel that you learn so much about, not necessarily yourself, because we don't need to pry into your business, but what do you think it is that you've learned about the world around you, practicing magic in so many different traditions for so long that most people miss?
Honestly, the subtle things. I think
Mhm.
we grow up in a society of so much media, like movies like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and
Mhm.
stuff, where, you know, all this magic that's happening is huge, like fireballs, fucking dragons,
Mhm.
and where I believe in all of that to some extent or otherwise. I think that a lot of magic and a lot of what's, like, spirit work, like spirits trying to communicate with us or vice versa, a lot of it is happening on a very subtle level. And a key isn't trying to do these huge rituals, which are great, and they're going to yield glorious results and sort of turn the world into a better way. But I think it's learning to tune into what's happening subtly like even in
Mm.
our environment through omens and augury and being able to read the clouds or into water, into a flame. It's like well,
Mm.
there are so many messages and there's so much, we already live in a world where there's a lot of physical information and data that we're overwhelmed with. If people knew to the extent of how much sort of spiritual data there is that can be tapped into for your own
Mm.
benefit or for magical workings or just sort of like the gaining of information, like where you live or whatever. There is so much that's being shared. It's like you're literally just trying to, like those old TVs, you're trying to kind of tune into a station that clears up from the static. And so it's just learning to kind of sit, even if it's hours, and you do that every day until you feel like you're finally tuning in. A lot of it is just sitting and being able to kind of attune to the spirits or
Mm.
that God or the spirits of place where you live. Because I feel like, there's so much happening that's big and huge and explosive and dramatic. There's a lot that's happening that's real subtle and even small. And I think that people feel like if they come to magic and they're not like tossing fireballs and flying on a broom, that they're not doing magic. And there's a lot more to be done and a lot more to be said about magic than those sort of big, essentially dramatic experiences. There's a lot more
Mm.
that's happening. And I think that if we're able to slow down and we're able to utilize a number of techniques, like whether it's the gazes with your eyes from Jason Miller's book, like The Sorcerer's Secret or the Sorcerer's
Mhm.
Treasure, um, and a number of really seemingly basic techniques like that. We're able to see spirits, to hear them, to do huge works. And I feel like once you tap into what's subtle and you learn to work in that way, then you really start to experience things on a larger level, because it's almost like you've come down and you're seeing things through like a microscope, and that for whatever reason opens up sort of the bigger side of things and of magic and everything as
Mhm.
well. And so that's what I would say, is look to what's subtle. If people are having issues or feel like they are with communicating with their ancestors or a certain spirit, instead of expecting that spirit to like show up as like a 1,000-foot towering wall of fire or something, expect to hear them subtly or within, because
Mhm.
our senses aren't just what we can physically see and smell and hear. They're sort of the extra sensory that it might be happening within. It could be almost like a voice in your head that's different than your own. It can be many things. And so tapping into the subtle and knowing and realizing there's far more going on. And if there's not some big explosion going on, it doesn't mean that your magic isn't working. Often it just means that there are gears turning, sort of the mechanics of the cosmos there. It's still happening. You need to be patient, or you need to kind of sidestep or get some divination to clear things up.
I love what you said about the movies having, fireballs and lightning bolts and all the really cool stuff, but I think that that's a really good example of how people will externally experience magic as an outsider. They'll see, a miracle cure of pain or disease, or they'll see a court case that should have gone against them, or even more dramatic stuff. You'll see, some Kung practitioners can light fires with just, pointing their fingers a certain way. But
Mm.
nobody
Your
really
chi.
understands the
Mm-hmm.
hundreds, if not thousands of hours of meditation or intense prayer or everything
Yep.
behind that. It's all it's the occult, the hidden stuff that works on that. So when somebody's
Yeah,
breaking into magic
exactly.
and they want to learn a bit more, and they want to learn from a professional, the sorcerer for retainer service that you have. Am I saying that correctly? Sorcerer for retainer service. Can you tell us more about that? I'd love for people to become
The
more
source
aware
for a
of
higher
that.
retainer service.
Ah, that's the one. Sorcerer for hire retainer.
Sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when done between, I was offering products and services. The
Hmm.
source for higher retainer is something that's evolved over the past 6 years. At one point, I was offering, readings or basically setting of lights with candles, and my own practice and path and things have certainly evolved over time. And I still work with many, obviously many new and other clients as well. But with many of the same original clients I've been working with for years. And
Hmm.
over that time, I basically, brought together the best of all worlds of one-on-one mentoring, divination via card reading, mediumship, and then obviously, like ritual magic in whatever way that, whatever, sort of whatever way that may manifest, whether it's, like the setting of lights, the creation of a talisman, astrological magic with the calling forth the angels of a certain planet, planetary sphere, and things like that. And so the retainer is something that's taken on new forms over time. And basically, it's like an all access pass where, I have clients who they own like a big business and they want weekly divination, and they may only work with me for that. They get that reading every week. They make sure that everything's right as it's supposed to be, and that's it. And then I have some clients who they want to learn from me, and I will work with them over 30 days up to a year and beyond, and basically, answer all questions, share everything that I could possibly tell them, and be able to really help them sort of, shed light on some things that maybe they weren't able to clarify before. And so, some people might benefit from one, some people might benefit from all of them. And I'm able to tailor and sort of essentially personalize my services according to their situation, their needs, their goals. And that is certainly our most popular service. And it's one reason I only keep 10 spaces at a time, because I have about 3 or 4 people who've been working with me solidly for about 5 years with that service. So, but it's like once it books up, I'm booked until an availability opens, basically. But yeah, that's pretty much what I point most people to. Some people, they want one ritual. That's what they need. That's what their situation calls for. They'll book a custom ritual work with me. We handle that, whether it's a court case, they needed to get some mojo behind to win the case, and basically win custody of their kid from their abusive, ex, or whatever the situation is. And then some people need more than that. And that's usually where I'm like, hey, the retainer is kind of your best option, and that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm of the mind that more professionals need to be following that same pattern because it's from what I've seen, I don't have any a service like that, but I have noticed over the past few years that people that keep coming my way, especially the more that I work with Hecate, tend to be women who are being persecuted by, former husbands or, that kind of stuff. It's only growing, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And there's
Yeah.
that funny little pattern that starts to pop up when, the gods or spirits are telling you to do it. But what I've been seeing more and more of lately is that need for guidance and that need for magical services that most folks can't quite muster up because they're learning from, witch talk, or not to put
Mhm.
down witch talk, but they're learning from
Yeah.
social media sources that don't quite,
Mhm.
you know, get the job completely done. Now, when you want
Mhm.
something that is miraculous, let's say healing magic, if somebody wants to recover from cancer or somebody wants to recover from debilitating injury, something like that, what would be the I don't know, protocol or the process that you would advise a person to go through on that sense for the truly miraculous changes?
Mhm. Yeah. Divination is obviously, especially in cases like that, especially if it's like life altering, or it's life threatening. There are a lot of spirits that I've worked with over the years that are tried and true that I can always come to, always can work with. But every situation can differ with that. Honestly, I would work with spirits like the angels of Mars, like with Archangel Samael, and the
Mm.
angels of the sphere of Mars, Medenial, Bartzaki, Eshel, and Ithuriel. I've seen some really great things working with them on behalf of clients who are dealing with like cancers and some really nasty stuff, and being able to basically reverse or heal or remove or undo. And as many people know, Mars is definitely, the sort of planet or god or force for surgeries and anything that has to do with removing things or dividing things, but it's specifically around like surgeries with like blades and knives or
Hmm.
anything like that, and healing amongst other things. And so that would definitely be, with them. And I would probably call upon Archangel Michael for more of a protection aspect to ensure that the cancer or sickness didn't return. Obviously, anything I do, I'm working with Saint Cyprian of Antioch, who's like my patron saint. And so he kind of, I basically do the work, put it in his hands, and I find that they're always able to handle things even that I felt maybe I was was out of my league or something like that. So yeah, every situation can differ. It's different for each person, and that might be due to their own personal astrology as well. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's there's a resolution. There's something to solve just about any situation. It's really being the way I perceive it is I do my best. The way I've learned, the way I've been taught, I see things almost like from a diagnosis or a diagnostic kind of angle where I can look at someone's situation. I can almost tell you, like, say if they've been cursed or hexed, I can almost tell you like the tradition that it was done in or from, and pinpoint even like the spirit that they worked with at times, whether that's intuitive or my spirits or
Hmm.
just sort of like you said before, seeing like a pattern. But yeah, every situation can call for something different. It just kind of depends. There's some situations like with that where I might make like an amulet for the client and follow that up with ritual work to, uncross any issues, remove any blockages, any kind of magic that's been worked their way. If the sickness isn't like, magic worked their way, it's just like naturally occurring or otherwise, you would approach it differently than if somebody was like doing magic and actually sickened somebody and stuff. So it kind of depends. Each situation calls for a different approach, I feel like.
Yeah, and that definitely really does resonate strongly with like the versatility approach, and I think that that is really astounding when people do something like yourself. For example, you do your goetic magic, you do your astrological magic, you do the root work, and I think that it's
Mhm.
so amazing to see such versatility. Not that, I mean, we all, once you do it for a long time, some spirits can do pretty much anything, but I love that the approach has so much variability to it. When we look at things like root work,
Mhm.
and of course, there's always the conversation that pops up about appropriation. And my thing has always been the spirits will tell you when you're not welcome. And they'll make it clear. And if you keep going, they will make it more clear if they don't like you. But how do you approach things like the thoughts of cultural appropriation and magic and such from the expert point of view?
I think if you're a racist or you're a fascist or you're directly against people of color, I think you don't belong. You don't belong, and the spirits may have to say or they may do whatever, but I would say those are the people that don't belong. People who outright do not like people of color or who hold prejudice, you just don't belong in something that is inherently African American or bears a root in such a way. But yeah, that's something that I feel like almost every other person you talk to may have a different opinion. I feel like it's a melting pot of a tradition. It
Mhm.
obviously, it hails from people who were basically brought over, basically stolen from their countries, enslaved. They brought their wisdoms, their teachings, the way basically their perspectives and methods around working with spirits and even the wisdom around the medicines that they worked with and their own ceremony, and then basically at some point syncretized those practices with the practices of people that were in America, in North America, and otherwise. And so you have this big melting pot of a tradition, and I feel like that if you cut away everything that wasn't African American, at least for hoodoo, you wouldn't be left
Mhm.
with very much at all because
Yeah.
you have like it's like you have Jewish mysticism and pharmacology and ceremony, with like the sixth and seventh books of Moses, the Key of Solomon. You've got traditional Chinese medicine and
Mhm.
Ayurvedic medicine and even like basically like Hindu magic and practice. You've got Mexican brujeria. You've got indigenous medicines of the people of the Americas. And so it's like there of many people and cultures that came together, that people who were African Americans, people who had of many identities, were able to basically like enrich the practice of hoodoo and conjure and root work. And I feel like there's something beautiful about that. I feel like as far as misappropriation, if you have somebody that's like basically like a Klans member or someone that is completely against the liberation of all people or people of color or whatever, and they come along and try to take it and write a book, or they rehash what somebody else did, and they really have no good intentions. They only seek to possess, to take it, to make it their own, to make it something else. I feel like that's bad. But if you genuinely approach it with reverence, with love, it's like with me, I don't seek to possess hoodoo. It's not mine. I'm very grateful to have ever been welcomed in. Um, but yeah, I feel like there's, it's something one of my mentors, actually, I was on the phone with him yesterday, and he was telling me, it's like, he was reminding me that there's a spirit to hoodoo. And it was what I was telling with him, as well as, hoodoo is all about liberation. It's about freedom. It's about empowerment and connection and community and many other things. And hoodoo has evolved over the years. It will continue to. And that's one thing that keeps it alive. And so I think that, as he said, and I share his opinion, basically, as long as it maintains the spirit of hoodoo, and you're not trying to like do away with people of color, that it continues to celebrate that resilience and that spirit, and just like that true grit and power and resolve that, not only African American, but all people who are oppressed, whether you're Jewish, whether you're indigenous, whether you're an immigrant or otherwise. It's like you can work within hoodoo, you can liberate and free yourself, and you can be better off for it. But yeah, I would definitely say, the tradition itself has to be approached with respect, with reverence, for the people that came before, for the spirits that are connected, and for the absolute hell that African American people and their ancestors have endured over the years, through slavery and just all the bullshit, all the civil rights movement and everything, all that they've had to fight for. It's like, I think that it's kind of like they need to be kept front and center, and respected and revered, and other people can be welcomed, as long as you're not like the enemy, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, hoodoo conjure root work, they exist for people to walk in that and to free themselves, and to truly be liberated. And I think that's why you have so many figures like Black Hawk and Harriet Tubman, that are, it's like she literally led, like, and was a part of the, and created the Underground Railroad. And then you've even got spirits like Black Hawk, who was like a powerful warrior, and who was all about, kind of going against the grain, and all about liberation, and rights and stuff like that. And so I think as long as you approach it with that respect and with that compassion and stuff, and you're not just like trying to just take it and make it something else, or take that and make it seem like it's not even hoodoo, it's something else now. I think as long as you have love in your heart for it, basically, and for the people that lived, gave, and died, and bled, and otherwise, so that it exists, I think that's what's important.
When we look at that, and fully acknowledging I'm completely an outsider to hoodoo, and from what it appears, at least from my point of view, and please do check me if I'm wrong, is that it's important to understand the pain and suffering of any magical tradition that came along
Mhm.
its formation. And hoodoo, obviously, with its roots in liberation of oppression and people who have suffered, gives it that particular power and that particular, I want to say, flavor to it that becomes so much more relevant as time goes by. And things run on in cycles, and of course now we're seeing more places for hoodoo once again to rise and fight against growing fascism and the
Yep.
same old crap that still happens. And we can, you can take that spectrum and you can apply it to so many other traditions, because I don't believe there's any magical tradition in the West, at least, that hasn't been heavily censored and oppressed at some point in time.
Yeah.
And honoring that, I think you are 150% correct in that, is key to that element. And there's a litmus test that I think a lot of the spirits will put you through.
They will.
Yeah, absolutely. The
Yeah.
first time you wake up to someone standing over your bed, just looking at you in that judgmental manner, and you're like, well, okay, maybe, maybe not. This is the right path for me.
It's like
Uh,
you said, it's like the spirits will let you know, and it's like, well, they do nothing but guide me forward,
mhm.
and help empower me to, to just basically keep going. It's like it. it's needed now more than ever. The world we live in, it's going to take time for things to get right, and it's going to take all the mojo that we can
Hmm.
to make sure that the new world we're building together serves us all.
Yeah, and actually, I cannot even remember who I was having this conversation with. It was one of those conversations that was really mind blowing, but damned if I can remember who it was with. This was a few weeks ago. Is that a lot of people who do not understand how magic works don't know that that chaos that we're seeing right now is that perfect opportunity for like magic to rise and be very useful because chaos is nothing but a series of levers that you can push. And that magic has been in the wrong
Yeah.
hands for way too long.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
People
it
who knew
is
the nature of things, but they didn't want you
Mhm.
to know the nature of how things work, basically.
Exactly. If you think that the people in power are not employing powerful occultists, and from the pure psychology and hypnotherapy point of view, from my bailiwick, is if you think people aren't trying to manipulate you psychologically
Oh,
and magically 24/7, well,
yeah.
you're kind of part of the problem. And you have to
You
realize
are.
that your empowerment requires you to
Yep.
step
Many of the
outside the
people who
boundaries.
rule the world, it's like if they don't. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's
Yep.
entirely
Exactly.
it's funny to think about like people in, the administration trying to, do a blood sacrifice under a red moon or something like. No, they hire people, but at the same point in time, it's kind of amusing to try and think, how do you work your way around that? So in these times of like chaos and craziness, what do you want to tell practitioners as we are looking at, the potential for more oppression and more people trying to censor us or outright come at us that may be coming in the future?
Yeah. Kind of get real clear about who your enemies and your friends are, and kind of circle the wagons. We're going to need each
Mhm.
other, and we're going to need to be building solid, even more solid communities than ever before, to like watch each other's ass. And especially with the new age of them trying to wipe the world clean of paganism again and stuff, even
Mhm.
though they're literally practicing paganism. And so, yeah, it's a time where discernment is needed now more than ever. And watching your ass, and we don't live in a time where we can be delusional, or we can fly by the seat of our pants. Especially as witches. It's kind of like watch your
Mhm.
back, and keep those protections strong. And be very aware of like where you are and what you're doing and what's going on, because the world's changing quickly, like maybe faster than ever, and we're going to have to be ready to you know to take that leap along with it. So
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that community, I think, is that's going to be key. And if, I think it was I think it was Franklin that said, if we don't stand together, we will hang separately. And it's a
yeah.
weirdly accurate thing to say in these weird and truly bizarre times. Well, we're
Yeah.
closing in on our hour. Do you have any final things you want to say before we start talking about where people can find you? Anything you want people to know directly about you and how you live life and what you have to offer folks who come to find you?
I think we also live in a time where it's very important to be true to yourself more than ever as well. There's so many people, especially with the influencer culture that we live in, where
Mm,
people see somebody living some way and it seems perfect and it seems curated and clean and neat, and people want to emulate those people. It's like, be your own unique, authentic, true self, because that will speak far more volumes than you trying to like copy someone else or whatever. And I see that happen. Someone sees someone who thinks they know what they're doing, and they'll want to hop on the bandwagon, and it's like, well, that person has taken many avenues and been through a lot of crazy shit just to get to where they are. And so you can try to kind of copy them the more all that you want, but it's going to do more for you to do your thing, stay focused on what you're doing, and keep rising in whatever tradition or path or whatever you're working on. It's like, stay focused also, because there's so much that's going to try to shake you from that, and try to basically take your attention from what you're doing. And so I think that's something important too, is staying true to you and kind of staying focused on what's important. So
Perfect. I mean, that's as good advice as you're ever going to get is be your weird.
yeah,
Most definitely.
exactly.
Where can everybody find you, Adam?
Yeah. So you can find Devil's Conjure at devilsconjure.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads, and TikTok. You can find pretty much all of our services at devilsconjure.com, as well as our products, custom rituals, the retainer service. We even offer, recorded classes that my husband Darren and I have recorded. They're part of what we call the philosophy of magic. They're 4 solid classes that pretty much anyone from any walk of life, even experience level, can stand to gain. Especially people who are just stepping into magic and they're not really sure where to turn. Those 4 classes are really solid for anyone who's stepping into any tradition. And then we have a linktree / Darkleys Inc. And you can find like our you can also book like a reading and things like that. But yeah, all of our information's out there, as I said, devilsconjure.com. We're on a ton of the different social medias like Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, I offer many services, classes, products, pretty much something for everyone. So
Awesome. Excellent. And like I do with everybody who I've ever like purchased some work from, I will most certainly say to anyone listening to this, Adam's work is crazy powerful. Like I was saying at the beginning, that Black
thank you.
Pullet amulet never disappoints. So definitely check out his stuff.
That's
And
a
I'm going to go
popular
ahead.
one.
What's up?
That's a popular one for sure. I can't even keep the black pullet amulets in stock. So once I restock them, it's like they're gone.
Yeah, I mean it's insanely present. I remember when I went to the mailbox to pull it out of the mailbox, I could feel her through the mailbox and just like, whoa, something crazy going on here.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to end this recording, Adam. I want to say thanks for hanging out today and spending your time.
Yeah, it was a
And
pleasure. Thank you.
hey, man, I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. So we'll go ahead and we'll say see you next time.
See you.
One of the things that I love the most about this podcast is having these conversations that enrich my life and ideally the lives of everyone who listens by experiencing different wisdom from different people. And Adam certainly has that to spare. He's a powerful practitioner who makes amazing things, and you should absolutely go find him at devilsconjure.com, where he offers, as mentioned, classes and products that are exceptional in nature. Go there now. Do it. Also, remember, the subscribe button and the like button are your best friends in the world, so go ahead and show them some love. And while you're hitting those buttons, if you have any comments or questions you want to leave for the show, go ahead and leave them down below. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and say you have yourself an amazing week. I do have some phenomenal guests lined up, and I'm looking forward to bringing some more things to you in the future. I will see you in the next video. Bye.